he was just like, he was like, that's when you kiss her, man. Like, kiss her right there. Like, that's when you kiss her.
It was a very kiss the girl moment. Because we've gotten rid of the first kiss has to happen in the last scene. Like, so they kissed. They kissed while they were dancing. That was adorable. It was a good kiss. You can kiss multiple times. People falling in love kiss multiple times. Everybody, we're the Good Doctors of Abbey Research. I'm Dr. Erin.
I am Dr. Kristen.
It's holiday movie time.
Guys, we are so excited.
This is my CGI snow falling.
Yeah, my office is already decorated. I have started listening to Christmas music because, in the words of Auntie Mame, we need a little Christmas right this very minute. And here is Lifetime and Hallmark and the Good Doctors to provide that for you.
We are, as we always say, all year-round fans of structured joy.
Yeah.
And very few things bring us more joy than the structured joy of holiday films, especially around the Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa season. We are trying to hit as many as possible this year. You guys have seen in our schedule. If not, there will be a link to the PDF of the schedule in the downstairs so you can follow along. We're also doing exclusive coverage on our Patreon. So if you would like to join us for that, we would love to have you. Links below, schedule, Patreon link, all that jazz. We will survive the dark days of December through this structured joy. And we're doing our holiday movie coverage a little bit different this year. We're doubling the joy and doing comparative discussions. So we're not just going to talk about one film and say we liked this, we didn't like this. We're going to compare. And my dear friend Kristen created a glorious Google sheet based on, she had like 8 windows up at once, y'all, like the Lifetime schedule, the Hallmark schedule, the synopsis, on IMDb, trying to find out who our favorite Hallmark heroes and heroines were.
Big shout out to EW and Vanity Fair for their help in that process with the synopsis and the summaries. So thank you guys.
Lifetime and Hallmark, we need a comprehensive guide. Like, just do it next year, please. We beg you to do that. But Kristen persevered through the lack of cohesive descriptions and plots and created our schedule for us. And we are comparing films based on like tropes or similar plot points or storylines, things that bring them together. So, today we're talking about Hollywood behind the scenes themes. We've got cross-cultural themes. We're doing second chance romance. We're having all kinds of fun with our favorite tropes because what are we doing if not having trope watch as well as the mistletoe star category that we have for these films. So all that is out of the way. Today we're doing Hollywood behind the scenes type, famous person falls in love with non-famous person tropes. We've got 2 properties, one from Hallmark, one from Lifetime. Thank you so much for helping us branch out across platforms, friends. The Hallmark movie that we had is Lights, Camera, Christmas, which is starring the fantastic, I never remember her name, but she's the girl from the 9 Lives of Christmas.
Kimberly Sustad and John Brotherton.
Ooh, look at you writing down names. Thank you for that. Yes, Kimberly Sestad from Nine Lives. We love her from Nine Lives of Christmas, which is.
I mean, she exists outside of that movie, we think, but like, yeah.
Top tier Hallmark Christmas movies of all time. Nine Lives of Christmas.
Yep.
And then for our Lifetime film, we did it premiered the weekend before Thanksgiving here in the United States. Reindeer Games Homecoming.
My God, heart eyes. A million heart eyes.
Which is just possibly the best holiday film we've ever seen. So, real quick, just gonna summarize the plots of these two, and then we'll get into what we liked, what we didn't, which worked, who won this competition. Lights, Camera, Christmas is a setup between the King of Christmas, Brad Baxter, and Carrie Devine, who is a costumer, fashion designer, living in 12 Oaks, Colorado, which is not a real place, and did not look at all like Colorado except for the one Colorado license plate. So if I, like, zero...
I'm guessing Vancouver.
Out of 5 snowballs for accuracy of whether or not this was in Colorado, 0 of 5 snowballs. It is one of the reasons why I didn't give it an extra mistletoe, because I was like, why is this a part of the... Okay, it doesn't matter. Then why did you mention it? By the by. So, they're filming. This is one of those, like, meta films where they know what Christmas movies are and why they're so popular, which we loved that conceit. So, they are filming My Favorite Santa in 12 Oaks, Colorado. Thus, Brad and the whole show arrive to film, and they are out of a costume designer. And so, eventually, Carrie gets roped in to provide costume assistance. Her and Brad fall in love. There's some miscommunications. There's some angst. There's some decision-making disorders that happen. They don't end up together until the very, very end of the movie, which is actually a cool way to frame it in that we get their love story in flashbacks as they are telling stories about the making of the film at a screening in Los Angeles, which was cool. I appreciated that.
Creative conceit, creative framing.
It was a creative framing. Yeah. Yeah. So that is Lights, Camera, Christmas. Reindeer Games Homecoming is also small town America. Hollywood actor falls in love with small town local. But this is friends to... They were friends stroke crushes in high school. So it's not really a second chance because, like, they didn't quite have a romance to begin with, but they had a kiss in Poughkeepsie at the science fair.
I also want to say that they're in Maine. Poughkeepsie is a really long way to go for a science fair. So I feel like they just forgot to, like, control F.
Yeah.
Locations. The draft didn't quite, because I was like, oh, Poughkeepsie, it must be upstate New York. And then I see all these Maine license plates. I was like, child, why are we going to Poughkeepsie for a science fair? Like, I know. That's a haul. I know.
We missed a trick there. But this is the love story of Chase Weston and Mackenzie Graves. What names?
What name? And Chase Weston, otherwise known as Chris Evans. Like, very, very obvious.
It was 100%. 100%. And they were lab partners in high school. They each had crushes on each other. She went off to eventually almost become... Well, she is a doctor. She was in her residency. And he became a famous action movie star. He comes back home at Christmas. They reunite over the Reindeer Games, which is an annual competition in their hometown, which was a goddamn delight. And yeah... We loved Lights, Camera, Christmas until we watched Reindeer Games Homecoming and realized it was a poor man's Reindeer Games Homecoming.
Let me also say the actors in this is Sarah Drew, who I have loved since she was Bright Abbott's girlfriend on Everwood. So love that for her. And Justin Bruning, who we know from the show Sweet Magnolias, in which he is also a delight. And in that show, his romance partner is Joanne Garcia Swisher. And he is a charm machine, let me tell you.
He is just 100% made of charm.
he is made for rom-coms because he's got a really good self-deprecating vibe that John Brotherton doesn't really have. Like John Brotherton didn't quite pull that off. Justin Bruning really pulled off that, like, I'm a mess and I know it. Like, my sister's still gonna make me do truth confessions before she gives me a nacho. Like, it was just
I do think that was a key difference because I think the heroines of both of these
much of muchness
were excellent. The script
Sarah Drew, by the way,
has
been on Grey's Anatomy for anyone who's wondering.
For like 14 years. Yeah. The script overall was better in Reindeer Games Homecoming, but Kimberly Sestek's delivery is always amazing. She was so convincing. I 100% believed her as Carrie. The only thing I didn't like about her character was they were a little too wishy-washy on why she didn't believe in herself. They made it a point without really describing why, and even when they did explain why, that she like dropped out of fashion school, they never really said the why. So that was the only thing with her character that I didn't buy, but she was adorable and hilarious and self-deprecating. But yeah, I think that's a really important distinction, is Chase and what's his name that plays him?
Justin Bruning.
Justin was just more believable. There was more dimensionality to him. And like part of it was because Brad Baxter is supposed to be this like, oh, I'm only one-dimensional. And then like it took Carrie to kind of get under his skin and like open him up a little bit. But I thought that took too long, and even then it wasn't as believable as like a sort of famous action star who doesn't know what the next step is in his life. Like it was so Chris Evans, and he like, I'm sure he was just like channeling Chris Evans in his acting, but it was amazing.
Yeah, and for any, like, it's this small town boy who goes home. Now, the only thing I didn't quite buy is that it's very clearly like he's still really connected to his family. Like, why hasn't he come back since graduation? Like, why was this such this like giant shock to everybody?
Does his sister always like
go to
his
LA?
Pregnant sister with a 16-year-old and a husband who travels is to
deployed.
LA for visits? Is deployed. Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah. Like,
so that one felt a little like
no one's
that
seen
was a
him
little
since
bit
high
of a
school,
hole.
but he has a great relationship with his nephew. Yeah, that was a hole. Correct.
That was a little bit weird. Like, and that could have been easily solved with a like statement that like if he had been running into the best friend for ages, and the best friend looks at Mac and is like, you can't avoid him this time too. Yeah. Like that could have been that could have been fixed.
Simon was Simon, the Mac's best friend. Her sassy gay best friend, neighbor, coworker was an absolute joy. And such great connective tissue between the two. Like, he was a really good bridge, and he could have easily bridged that plot hole.
Yeah, and there was, okay, so why don't we, how do we tackle this? So we will say, overall, Reindeer Games Homecoming is our, like, it has skyrocketed to the 2022 Christmas movie winner. I mean, I've watched all of 3, but I'm not entirely sure anything could beat this. Something might join it. But I am a damn sucker for these kind of stories. I love behind the scenes Hollywood stuff or behind the scenes music industry stuff. Yeah. Always my favorite. I love this conceit of, it's like part of my parasocial relationship obsession, I think, of like, I love reminders that the people that we think we know, we don't actually know. There's this whole world in their world that we don't know anything about. But that there is somebody who sees them and knows them and gets them. Yeah. So I love that to begin with. I also particularly loved the Reindeer Games one, because I also love the kind of knowledge that comes with a second chance. Like, he could prove to her that he remembered the letters that her dad wrote. He could, oh my gosh, he could say to her, like, you know, it was so funny. Let me say this. I know I'm a little bit all over the place, but what really sold me on this movie forever was this one conversation that they had where he kind of said, I so admire you that you're content.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to do that, but you could see from her face that she felt he was accusing her of settling.
Yeah.
And, like, she didn't know how to do that. And he was genuinely, honestly complimenting her because he loves that she could, like, build this, and he sees it as a flaw. And what we find at the end is that that was a problem for... He was too ambitious, and she wasn't ambitious enough, and they could meet each other in the middle and figure it out. But that, like, little piece of, like, I used to call you pre-med, and now I call you smarty pants. Like, this is who... It's also a reminder, as much as we all hate to say this, who we are in high school generally is who we are forever. Like, there's a lot of us that's pretty cooked by 18. And a lot of, like, our big wounds, our big scars, like, the trauma that kind of shapes us. I mean, because even with big grief, it didn't change who she was. I loved all of that. And, I mean, their chemistry was... utter perfection. Like, they obviously, if they did not enjoy being around each other, they deserve Academy Awards, because it was
good acting.
Clear that they at least tolerated each other.
Yeah, and I think too, for me, what stands out, then I kept writing in my notes as I was going, was how real their conversations were and the relationships were. And I was just like, a real person wrote this script. And, like, these are, like, her, her part of her story where she kind of, like, froze after her dad died, and was so afraid to move on because moving on meant losing her dad. And, like, the conversations as Chase, like, helped her see that in herself. And it wasn't one revelatory moment where she figured it all out. It was their relationship that helped her see that about herself, because he gave her the space to figure it out and to know her, and she did the same thing for him. And, you know, these movies are made up, but this one felt so lived in. And, you know, the conceit of Lights, Camera, Christmas, as, you know, we're showing you behind the scenes, like, we know Christmas movies are really fake and they're really cheesy, and, like, I loved that they leaned into how cheesy they were. The wink at the end, like, slayed me. The wink at that, like, and he, like, that actor was so great at being kind of
like a himbo. Like,
yeah, he was so good at it. But I think for me that then it lost some of the possible realness that just this, like, sometimes the simpler stories are the better ones, and I loved the conceits, and I had a lot of fun in Lights, Camera, Christmas, but ultimately it was how authentic Reindeer Games Homecoming was that, like, it has got a place in my heart. I actually factually cried when she was talking about how she couldn't open her dad's last letter. They had real kisses multiple times. When he, like, picked her up and kissed, like... I just... There were even a couple, like, sex jokes where I was like, yeah. It was just real. It was human. Like, Simon came over the next morning. It was human, yeah. With Prosecco or champagne or whatever. Which we have learned that if you are one of the cool people, you call it Prosec. But I just feel like whenever it's very clearly cheap bubbly like that, we should call it Jampagne, like on Schitt's Creek. Yeah, it's Jampagne. Yeah. It's Champagne. But yeah, and it was a beautiful story about, like, community and learning to rely on people and actually connecting with people. And with that, some moments where I just, like, absolutely cackled. I laughed out loud so much. So written, I think, by people who know what they're doing, but also people who love Christmas movies and the potential of Christmas or holiday movies. So, I mean, we can waffle on about this for 18 years. Well, I do want to point out a couple things that I did like in Lights, Camera, Christmas that I think were really interesting that we could kind of like take to talk about. So, one of the things with Lights, Camera, Christmas that they decided to do differently than other holiday movies is give us two love stories. So it was... Yes. That I did. I enjoyed that. It was the directors of this movie, and that arc was incredibly well done, and I thought paced very, very well. It was paced very well. Yeah, better paced than
Unfortunately,
the main romance.
that meant that the main romance wasn't quite paced as well. And
Yeah.
there was, to Aaron's point, like the ending bit of him finally saying, like, I mean, I think we all knew that he ran because he was scared and he had never been seen that way before. Like, of course, that's why he ran. And of course she was going to take that as complete rejection because everyone always rejects her. And then which is like, but I had to do too much work for that. So everyone always rejects her, quote. So she gets one rejection letter from a fashion show while she's in fashion school, which then means that everybody will always reject her. But, like, I had to connect that tissue. I shouldn't have to do that much work in a Christmas movie. And two, you didn't tell us, like, why that at the beginning. Like, her mom seems really lovely. Like, did her dad leave?
Yeah.
When they were young? Like, is that the thing? Did you edit out a scene that would have explained that?
Yes, great point. Because I kept, like, it's in my notes, and I kept saying it. I'm like, yeah, but why? Why don't you want to take this job? Why don't you? Your mom is lovely. Your community supports you. Like, where
did the trauma come from, child? Yeah.
What was the trauma?
What's the unhealed thing? Yeah.
And it was, like, the one rejection letter in college or, like, fashion school. It didn't fit.
But if you are somebody who already told yourself that story your whole life because your dad walked out on you when you were 4, of course one letter is big enough for you to walk away. Of course one phone call is. But, like, tell us what the base is that then reactivates the trauma. So that then his really great confession at the end, which I thought was scripted beautifully, the pacing was all off.
Oh, it felt so rushed. It felt so rushed.
So rushed. I didn't think we needed her to be offered the job 3 or 4 different times and her say she's not good enough. Like, there was some of that beginning stuff. Also, just a legit question. I didn't know costumers have agents. Do they have agents? I didn't know. That would have been interesting to me. I thought that one of the things that makes Like Camera Christmas, though, is that all of the side characters were on point. So Mariah was the co-star friend was great. The mom was great. The whole crew of the movie was great. And that's what holds Like Camera Christmas together in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Is that this whole ecosystem they built really feels real. Like, you can buy that people would show up at Hallmark Con or whatever it's called. I can't remember, like the Hallmark convention, to meet these people. Like, they would show up at a premiere to meet these people.
Oh, for sure.
And so they did a really good job with that in a way that only Hallmark truly could, because, like, they're the manufacturers of this thing. I loved all the fake snow nonsense, and when she tried to do the snowball and threw at him, and she was like, "Were you just going to stand there?" And he's like, "I wanted to see what you were going to do." I liked that
the two
a lot.
of them. Yeah, the two of them were great. I think for me, too, as you were talking about kind of set design, and I know you said that, like, Reindeer Games set design fell down for you. I actually appreciated it.
Well, I just mostly the posters in the high school. Like, of, like, they were the clearance rack of Scholastic, and it is not what high school posters look like. And so there was a couple times when they were walking by things, I was like, oh, that took me right out of that chicken. No, I liked a lot of the rest. I liked that the stands weren't full. I liked all the rest of it.
It
was the high school interior that I was like, really?
I appreciate that specific critique, and I agree with you. For me, I found it the lack of indoor lights refreshing in Reindeer Games Homecoming. Because my mom and I started watching it, and I was like, oh, this is already so much better because it's not sponsored by Balsam Hill. No offense, Balsam Hill, you make lovely things. But if I had to see that Christmas tree one more time in Lights, Camera, Christmas, I was like, so this is your flagship Christmas tree for 2022 is what you're telling me, because it is everywhere. And, like, it's the thing that it's like all of the garlands and all of the wreaths indoors are lit. And I don't know anyone who does their house like that. And it's just, for me, who gets visually overstimulated by things, I was like, and then I got to, like, Reindeer Games, and I was like, oh, this is not sponsored by Balsam Hill. And over the top, but not as over the top.
My parents have garland that's lit everywhere indoors. But the thing is, like, their house is bigger than a set is. And so, like...
it's crowded.
It's, like, too close together. So, like, they have a tree. So my parents have 2 trees. Like, a tiny tree that my dad can see from his chair, and then the giant family tree. And then the room that they always sit in has candles in the window, cue the song from Home Alone. And then garland, and then there's garland going up the front steps, and then there's wreaths and everything else.
But
I love how my parents do it.
Overdone.
But
it's not
it is like
every inch of your mother's house.
And there's space to
garland,
breathe in between it. And that's the problem. Like, even on Gilmore Girls, when Lorelai decorates their house at all, her house is so small for the amount of stuff they always put in it. So I think, like, but yeah, the Balsam Hill Christmas tree was a lot. And even, like, so I watched Reindeer Games Homecoming at home. Not at home, listen to me, at work. So my husband did not watch it with me. He watched Light Camera Christmas. And he pointed out the Balsam Hill before we even got the advert. He was like, oh, look, Balsam Hill has sponsored this season. And caught that immediately. And then he was very annoyed they didn't kiss in the snow pile. He was like, I understand that this is Hallmark, but, like, that's a conceit we can break. And he was just like, he was like, that's when you kiss her, man. Like, kiss her right there. Like, that's when you kiss her.
It was a very kiss the girl moment. Because we've gotten rid of the first kiss has to happen in the last scene. Like, so they kissed. They kissed while they were dancing. That was adorable. It was a good kiss. You can kiss multiple times. People falling in love kiss multiple times.
Kiss multiple times. So, and then he was the one that labeled Brad Baxter as the ultimate Hallmark himbo, and himbo is a dude bimbo, essentially, like a not very smart man who is very pretty to look at, which is like part of this. And my husband is still learning to use the term after the 2022 Philadelphia Phillies team was named like the most himbo-y of all baseball teams. I loved too that Brad was so into her he was awkward as all get out, like he couldn't handle himself. And I loved when he wrote her the RSVP that he then delivered to her, which felt really Hollywood. Like, I don't actually know how to talk to humans anymore, but here, RSVP to Brad Baxter, who's standing right in front of you, expecting you to RSVP immediately. Like,
his extra energy was so good. I loved it.
He was very golden retriever. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, there were, and that's what I think. Like, overall, it worked. Because the parts that were good enough pulled it back together. Yeah. When I felt like it was, pulling apart
I think
too much.
The comment I said to you about Reindeer Games is I want to crawl inside this movie and live there.
Yeah.
And
that's you said too, like it looks like a fanfic that you wrote, which is a very high compliment.
Yes. I've written this story and it was delightful.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. It was every inch of it. I was delighted. Yeah, and I don't know, maybe the first time I ever watched Hallmark Christmas movies before I was more jaded, I cried at a Hallmark Christmas movie, but it's been a good 5-6 years. So well done. Sarah Drew, who also wrote and directed, I think, this film. So she clearly had a story she wanted to tell, and she did a great job doing it. As we wrap up, we do two things always with our holiday movies. We see whether they have won holiday bingo, and we have a revised 2022 holiday movie bingo card. You can access yours down below. Download it, play along, play when you're just watching movies. It's good fun. We've updated a lot of the squares. We've moved things around. So for Lights, Camera, Christmas, we did not have bingo. There was a lot of squares, but not bingo. But we did get bingo for Reindeer Games Homecoming, and it was on the line friends to lovers storyline, obviously. Some kind of competition, Reindeer Games. Holiday tradition plot point, her dad's letters, and many others, but like the Christmas carols and all that kind of stuff. Christmas song in the background, there was only 8,000. And the beloved, coined by Dr. Kristen, White Christmas principle, in which a plot point revolves around a eavesdropping miscommunication. So somebody overhears something and there's the miscommunication. So when you see that on there, that's what the White Christmas principle means. It's much easier to write that than to write one character overhears another character and
makes inappropriate assumptions that then destroy the rest of their lives.
Yeah, that changes the course of the film. White Christmas principle it is.
That then makes you go and sing in a nightclub in New York instead of being in Vermont, where you're supposed to be Rosemary Clooney. Meddling housekeeper.
Meddling housekeeper. What was her name? Martha? No.
She's Sister Mary whatever in Sister Act, and so I'm not like I can't.
I think it might be Martha. I can see her. I'm so terrible with names, but
the actress's name is Mary, or was Mary. She's since passed. But anyway.
Anyway, it's the White Christmas principle.
Digress.
If you don't know what we're talking about, watch White Christmas. So, bingo, 1 out of 2. Hooray. And now it is time for our mistletoe rankings, where we normally rank the films on a scale of 0 to 5 mistletoe. You'll see in a minute we've gone a bit extra for Reindeer Games Homecoming. But Kristen, for Lights, Camera, Christmas, how many mistletoe are you awarding?
I'm awarding 4 mistletoe out of 5 for the following reasons. The Colorado thing didn't bother me because I never expect them to be realistic at all. So, but I respect as a Coloradan that like there's principles you have to stand on.
I can't unsee it. Like, and I think if it was another state, I think I don't know. It's
totally fine. I accept your critique. It does not bother me, so it does not affect my rankings. I loved the chemistry. I loved that they were obviously having fun. I thought his Santa costume was very creative and fun to watch. I liked how obviously he was so into her so quickly, and he just kept saying like, "Isn't she great? Isn't she great? Isn't she great?" And she was so like, "What is this weirdo doing?" In a really like that would feel very. I don't know. I would do that. Like, there's limits at which I think that's a little bit of my marriage, where people are like, "Your husband's really into you," and I'm like, "Why? Like, why is that happening?"
Okay.
I liked the cohesion. It loses the 5. I did like the secondary storyline. We don't often get that. We don't often get like a lived-in kind of thing. But it loses the mistletoe because they didn't manage the pacing of the main love story properly. I'm feeling generous this early in the season. If I watch this in December, it might be a 3. But this was like the second holiday movie I watched. I'm still fresh. So I'm going 4 out of 5 mistletoe. You are, I believe, lower than that.
Yeah, I went 3 out of 5. And that could be just because I wanted to hedge my bets. Because it was the first holiday film that I watched. And I was like, it's good. But I'm going to stick with 3, and not because of the Colorado. For me, it really was, the things that took me out of it were, like, honestly, the egregious over-decorating. It's just, I get distracted by it. It's my introvert brain. I am, like, staring in the background and not watching the people. It was the over-decorating. It was the inexplicable lack of self-confidence that wasn't really explained.
Fair.
And it was the pacing of their story in comparison. If you're going to do 2 romances, I loved the 2 romances. I loved a relationship that already exists working itself out. We love those. But it was so good that the other one, like, it felt so wrapped up at the end that was like, oh, we have to hit our mark right now.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm going to go 3 out of 5. I still loved it. I still really enjoyed it. We will watch Kimberly in everything. And probably 9 Lives of Christmas again, because it's
because the kittens one wasn't a good follow-up.
It wasn't good. It wasn't a good. How? Oh, no, me neither. I know
still
it was
watch
on.
It, but I don't care for it as much.
It was on like right before Reindeer Games or something, and I was like, no, it wasn't as good. For Reindeer Games Homecoming, I originally, when I was writing my notes, said 6 out of 5 mistletoe, and then you said 10 out of 5, and I said, fuck it, it's a made-up mistletoe categorization. So 10 out of 5 mistletoe. I can't imagine a more perfect holiday film.
For the 2 of us, no, it scratched every single itch that we have of what we want out of a holiday rom-com. Like,
everything.
If there was a couple more people of color.
Well, that's what the only thing, as I said that, I was like, I couldn't imagine a more perfect one. I'm like, except if they told this story with diverse looking humans.
Yeah. If if there was some different body types besides his agent, like there were some other things that would have made it more fun. But like for what it is, for what they handed us, none of the plot holes bothered me.
Nope.
I want to see the Reindeer Games in person next year.
Yeah.
I love that it was clearly cross-generational. I love anything where people take the task seriously but not themselves.
Yeah.
And that's what this is. And that's this movie, and they were just having fun. And
it looked like an absolute ball. Yeah. No, it was a joy. I will say both of them fall pretty short on the diversity scale.
Oh my gosh. And like
the
I was
stereotypical the black mayor in Lights Camera. I was like, guys.
And no one has differently abled bodies. Nobody has differently sized bodies. Like, hell, we don't even have gingers. Like, and I'm looking at a lot of the screenshots. It appears like if you have a black lead, you have to also have like an entirely black cast. And if you have white leads, you have to have an entirely white cast. And I don't know why we went back to 1996 Hallmark, but like we did. And it's not my favorite.
I don't care for it, no. So I think that's a wrap on where we are for right now. I'm pulling up what's next on the schedule for us. And we are doing, next up, Cross-Cultural Christmas. We will be talking about Christmas at the Golden Dragon and Sweet Navidad.
Now, Sweet Navidad, Lifetime is claiming it's new this year. But they also hypothetically showed it last year. So I don't understand what is happening, but we're still going to talk about it because we didn't talk about it last year.
Yeah, because when I went to record it on the DVR, it said 2021, and I was like, but it was the only one. Yes, so we will be doing, comparing two cross-cultural Christmas movies. One on Hallmark, one on Lifetime. So the great battle between Hallmark and Lifetime continues here on our tiny little corner of the internet. And for now, Lifetime is up 1-0.
Yes, we will also say there's another batch of cross-cultural Christmas movies happening exclusively on the Patreon. So if you are interested in which ones are those, Erin? Since you have the schedule in front of you.
I do have the schedule in front of me. A Big Fat Family Christmas, which is Chinese American, and Merry Textmas, which is Mexican American Christmas.
Hypothetically, who knows? I mean, they could just be generically American, but we'll let you know. And join us on the Patreon to find out.
Yes. So that will be happening in a couple of weeks' time. Before that, we will be doing Hollywood Behind the Scenes on the Patreon, where we will be doing a holiday spectacular and undercover holiday. And a holiday spectacular stars Broadway legend Derek Klena.
And it's a period piece.
It's a period piece. Oh boy, that's so much catnip for us. You guys don't even know. We will follow Derek Klena till the ends of the earth. He is currently starring in Moulin Rouge. He previously starred in Jagged Little Pill and Anastasia and other properties.
And our hearts.
In our hearts, forever and ever, Derek Klena. So yeah, the schedules will be in the links downstairs, so you can make sure to find out which tropes are happening when. But next up, coming up tomorrow, actually on the Patreon, will be our Hollywood Behind the Scenes, and then next week on the regular old YouTube, we will be cross-cultural Christmasing the crap out of this, and we'll see. That's an automatic square on the bingo. So we'll see if we get bingo with them. And if we've completely thrown out our mistletoe ranking system by then, who knows?
It's always a crapshoot. Thanks so much, guys, for joining us for this. In the spirit of the holidays, we will say that our hope for you is that you are safe and known, and that, as Reindeer Games told us, if you are important and beloved by a small group of people and for whom you are there in their world and they are in yours, then life is worth living. And we deeply hope that that is true for you, regardless of if any of them ever do a scavenger hunt for you. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.